Welcome to Acute Conversations, the official podcast of APTA Acute Care, where we share engaging conversations about acute care physical therapy so you can connect to your profession. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Leo. Today we chat with Bobby Bellarmino, an assistant professor at UT Health in San Antonio in Texas. We discuss his latest research, upcoming hot topics in education,
and how his grandmother influenced his career choice. Let's welcome our guest.
All right, today we welcome our guest, Bobby Bellarmino, who is a PT, DPT, PhD, and a CCS. We have all CCSs here on the podcast today. Dr. Bellarmino is an assistant professor in the Department of PT at UT Health San Antonio in San Antonio, Texas. He's been an active member of APTA since 1996. He currently serves as the chair of the Online Education Committee of our Academy and a member of the Research Committee in the Academy of Acute Care PT and the Academy of Cardiovascular and Pulmonary PT. He's also a reviewer for the Journal of Acute Care Physical Therapy, Jackpot, and recently he was featured in the journal. Bobby, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Leo and Ashley.
Of course, we're happy to have you here. I feel like we've got a couple things we can chat with you about today. But first, I think what we wanted to touch on with you is you have an important role in the Academy of Acute Care. So I'd love if you'd just share a little bit about that and maybe how you got involved.
Yes, thank you for that question. I first wanted to ask about when I've been a member of the education committee and helping up behind the scenes. And when there's a call out to serve as a virtual education, I look at the description and it speaks to me. And I said, I can do this job. And that moment, at that time, I was trying to do more for the academy and for the profession. So it's just a perfect timing for me to say, yes, I'd like to apply for it. And I went through the application process and submitted, and luckily I've been selected. The virtual education committee is exciting for me because I felt like I can reach out to as many people as I can to this medium of online. Nowadays, back in my time, we have to go to a live conference or a weekend conference to be able to get further education. With the new onset of platforms, online learnings, it becomes more easier, accessible to many.
Yeah.
And as I look around and work with different places, there are clinicians that wanted to have some other opportunities to learn, but they couldn't for many other reasons. And I've been saying to them, go to learning, APTA learning, go to different academy. They always have something going on. So it's just feeling for me when the opportunity comes along, because this is something I thought this is needed. And I thought that I can really make a difference in this role, having delivered the education through a virtual platforms where I can reach and really make a difference to clinician who wants to learn to better their education through this platform, this medium.
That's awesome. How often does the Academy of Acute Care have these online kind of education sessions?
We try to do at least monthly, either journal club or webinar. I felt like it's a captive audience right now that we have. There seems to be, when I go to my per diem hospitals, newer clinicians, older clinicians, there seems to be a hunger for knowledge, particularly in the complexity and the demands in acute care. And I've been saying to them, there are many places, many opportunities you can go. You're limited with your imagination because the computer, the online, there's so much already. You just have to go and seek and find and go for it. And, so I find that at least once a month will be an ideal, probably twice a month if there's a needed, considering that everybody's busy and we don't want to bog down our members that they always have this, they have that. But having an opportunity to monthly activity, learning activity that really be alive and always there for the members and non-members. So learning about there's something, what's going to be this month, what's going to be next month, what's going to be this. And I always constantly seeking input from members about topics that they feel they wanted to talk about, learn about it. And I look out for the journal, the jackpot, any interesting articles that I could see a big impact to the clinical practice. I invite them. And so, yeah, anything that I think we can deliver to our members and non-members about the opportunity to enhance their learning, we're there.
Awesome, Bobby. I want to say thank you because you kind of, I volunteered to help out with the last journal club not too long ago with that featured Darby. And Darby was actually, I said, wow, this is a really cool topic talking about outcome measures. She was actually our last guest. So because of that, because of you, again, it's so funny in the PT world and especially in the acute care PT world, things are very close, right? There's a lot of people you can reach out to in terms of that network. But thanks to you, we were able to get her onto the podcast and share some of that knowledge, some of that information in terms of what's being featured in the literature, what's being
Yes.
featured in our journal, and disseminating that information out to the rest of the people in our academy. So thank you for that opportunity for our listeners.
Thank you. No, you're very welcome. Somebody told me that it takes, if my memory serves me right, I used to have a short memory back. So it says to me that it probably takes 8 years, if I remember it, that from the research journal to the clinical practice. And I said to myself, that's quite long. 8 years. There got to be some way to deliver the knowledge that they found in the research article to the clinical bench. And that give me an idea. How about featuring articles that I find really useful in the acute care practice that many of our members could really benefit? And one of the things that I run into is outcome measures. It's so funny, I have a story to tell you that outcome measure has been going on for many years. But in some of my talk to some of the clinicians who has not been, let's put it, who needs a little bit more updating, they will start learning about the outcome measures in acute care. They can believe there's so much information and everything. I said, yes. And I kept saying to them, if you don't measure if you don't use any yardstick or you measure the functional limitation, you would know the problem and you would know the success and not success of your interventions. And a lot of that back and forth, back and forth. And then when I run into the article of Darby, it's just like, boom, this is particularly useful to our clinical practice. Why are we not talking about it? So that's why every time I see articles from Jackpot, it's like, this is great. Let's highlight it. Don't wait 8 years
Yeah.
for that articles
Too
to
long.
be on the clinical practice. I don't know, 8 years. Ooh,
Well, Bobby, speaking of highlighting articles, I know you're doing a great job of highlighting Darby's article on outcome measures, and we just had her as a guest, but you also were an author in Jackpot recently, and you had an article called Using Outcome Measures to Transition Ambulation from Physical Therapy to Nursing for Patients with Mechanical Circulatory Support. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart because I remember when we first, I remember ambulating the first patient at my facility on an intra aortic balloon pump specifically. And it was a big deal. And now, similar to you, like our nurses are doing it quite frequently when way back then it was not common practice. So please share with our audience and enlighten them on what you found in this article from your pilot study that you did.
oh, boy, I have to go back to my memory. But let me tell you a story how we come about that topic.
Okay.
So I remember when I was working at Houston Methodist Hospital, we have this critical care PT fellowship. And during our usual faculty meeting, we talk about research topic. And one thing that come up is that we don't have a nice processing where we can determine when is the right time to transition ambulation to nursing. And when each and every one of us answer that question, there seems to be a variability on how we think about transferring that care to the nursing. And that was just a light bulb to all of us. Why can't we study it and create some recommendations on how we can determine when is the right time to transition the patient with a balloon pump to nursing. As you can see, Ashley, taking care of this complex is not so easy. It takes a lot of skills, and walking a patient with mechanical circulatory device, it takes a village,
Yes. A lot of teamwork.
a lot of teamwork, coordination, scheduling. So we have to do a better job in helping us making a decision making when is the right time. And in that study, if my memory serves me right, we use different outcome measures. We use the impact, we use the gate speed, and permit score, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, permit score is very useful for us because we have the author working in our facility at that time.
So
Christina Fermi. That's right.
or no, maybe a little bias in the
Yes.
selection of that outcome measure.
Yes. And then we couple that with impact, which we like, and then also the gait speed, because the literature suggests that gait speed is now a good 6 vital signs. The faster you walk, the better you are, right? And you are being tittled by this mechanical circulatory devices. Imagine when you are turning and moving in a narrow pathway, you gotta wait, we gotta do this. That affects the gait speed, not because of the patient's limitation, but the architectural and the managing of different, like that limits the patient. So there's a little bit of bias of gait speed there, but we want to highlight about that because it talks about the ability of the patient to walk and their quality in terms of getting up and moving. We might just look at the numbers of the speed, but there's a little bit of the visual quality when when I assist the patients on doing that. So we use some outcome measures on that, and we identified there is some cutoff scores that we can use. I can't remember on top of my head about which scores are there, but
Bobby, I have it up. Do you want me to share? Do you want me to refresh your memory?
please do so.
Okay. Because I just think this is something I would have found fascinating when I was doing this with patients. And I think our audience would appreciate it too. I would encourage them to go read the article, but it said the proposed cutoff scores for when to transition to nursing led ambulation was 19.5, which was the raw score on the AMPAC, the 29.5 for the PERME, and then a gate speed of 0.57 meters per second or more. And I mean, I think that's so wonderful to have like at least a starting point of like when they are around this score, because it is a very intimidating thing for nurses to do. I remember our nurses were like terrified at first, when we were getting these patients up and moving. So this is really kind of, I feel like a great starting point for anybody who's thinking about doing this at their facility, or maybe who's already doing it, but they don't have a standardized procedure for when to transition.
Correct, Ashley. Yes. That study is a pilot though, but
Yeah,
it's a
of
good
course.
start. It's a good start on,
Yeah.
so at least we have some objective processing on when to determine that. And then we now have a data to support. Yeah, we can use it. Of course, it's going to be case to case basis with the patients, right? That's like any other things. We have this cutoff score, but we still need to find out, is this cutoff score applied to this particular patient's needs? Because it's a complex.
That's great hearing that the different perspectives. But now I have a question that there's a light bulb in my head for the both of you. Is that how much has nursing had any buy-in to this whole conversation, right? And for Ashley, from your standpoint, whether it is patients that are on a intra-aortic balloon pump or just being able to mobilize, because I know that there are listeners that are out there. They're like, wow, that must be great at your facility, but I can barely get my nurses, the nurses that I work with, to even take any ownership of that. So how was that conversation? Both of you, I'd like to hear the conversation been with nursing staff in terms of taking more ownership of patient mobility.
Bobby, do you want to start? Or you want me to start?
You can start and I'll
Okay. I was going to say, at our facility, I remember it very specifically. The first time we walked somebody, it was when they had transitioned. This is back when they had femoral balloon pumps all the time and they never got out of bed. So we consistently did bed exercise programs with them. But this one patient had to have it moved to the axillary region. And so when that happened, I remember going up to the director of the cardiac ICU and being like, can we please get him up and moving? And he was like, I don't know. So I remember bringing this article and saying like, hey, look, they're doing it, a couple of other places. And he was like, all right, let's try it. We had no protocol in place, mind you, at the time. It was just like trial and error. Let's see how this goes and make sure we don't pull that line out. But over time, they realized it was beneficial, right, to get these patients up and moving. So they started transitioning more of these femoral balloon pumps to axillary balloon pumps, which is a little challenging because that requires like an OR procedure at our facility versus just a cath lab procedure. So it sometimes was a little challenging, but now it's much more commonplace. So as it started happening more frequently, these doctors were like, well, we want to get these patients up and moving because many times they were waiting for heart transplants or
Right.
LVAD surgeries. And so it was great for them and helped their outcomes post-op. So to get nurses on board, I mean, part of our protocol after after the fact was that the nurses had to come with us to monitor the balloon pump. They had to be there to monitor the waveforms to make sure that balloon pump was staying in place because you start getting this kind of like VTAC rhythm if it starts to migrate at all. So nurses had to be with us to monitor the pumps, yet we were doing most of the actual physical components of it. But as we did it more and more and more, I think the nurses were just like, well, this isn't really that big of a deal. Like I'm already monitoring the balloon pump anyway. And so they just got more comfortable getting the patients up and moving. And the patients loved it. So they would ask to get up and move more than when just we came because we couldn't always go every day. So I think it was just a gradual process of the protocol requiring nursing presence. And that thing that just helped them get more comfortable.
That's a great story. I love hearing that in terms of actual behavioral change and changes to the
Yeah.
systems to make things better, better outcomes for the patients. What about you, Bobby? How's the conversation been with nursing staff?
Well, ours is quite different because because when I joined Houston Methodist Hospital, the culture is already there.
Mm,
Nurses already up and moving. The patients with balloon pump, especially when they transitioned out to intra-aortic way, subclavian. I noticed that what we wanted to refine it. How can we make it more objective? The nurses at that facility, they have that culture of early mobility. I've seen nurses already moving patients who can be moved and patients wants to be moved, and they're already taking that ownership. So we are now being referred to patients that may need a little bit more skilled services. But again, we don't have that process. So it wasn't really a difficult selling to them. They actually want it, I think, so that they will have more objectives. So now we know, okay, this is good for nurses and this is good for PT because of the skilledness that requires to this patient because of that's complexity of the needs of the patient. So yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, but I think for those facilities maybe who don't have that culture, right? And maybe they're still not there yet. I think having articles like this to be able to take to their leaders and say, hey, look, other facilities are doing this. There's actual cutoff scores now that have been piloted that we can try to show that maybe this is a safe thing to start doing. So, I mean, I think the more research we put out there, the better for those places that maybe aren't doing it or don't have the culture maybe that our facilities do, Bobby.
You're right. I agree with you. And for those nurses who's going to be afraid, we look at our subjects and we look at like a 1 week or 2 weeks, I can remember, and we didn't find any significant adverse events once they successfully transitioned to nurses. And I left already there. So I have to go back to my memory, remembering that there were no problem at all, but they more appreciation, more collaborative effort that we have created, even more communications between nurses and the proper handoff of ambulation from the PT to the nurses. It's become more objective.
Very cool. Bobby, I had a question. When were you installed as the chair of the online was that just last year at CSM? Was that CSM in Boston?
I think it's, I think I'm going for 2 years now.
2 years,
Next,
2 years.
next February will be 2 years. I'm working on, heading to 2 years.
Looking back, what are some of the different things that you've developed now with the online education? Again, there's the journal club. Were there any other, in terms of your memory, what other things that you've been able to feature the past 2 years that you've been able to implement?
Right. The good thing is I inherit with a good structure with Ashley. Ashley, oh my God, she's going to kill me.
Ashley Parrish.
Well, it's
I was going to say different Ashley.
a different Ashley.
A great
Ashley
Ashley.
Parrish.
Ashley.
Yes, yes. good thing I had up a very good structure from her. So she gave me enough time to really learn the position. And then when I said, we tease, I tease her before, like she's my mama bear because she's one protect me and everything. When I'm ready to spread my wings and be my own, and said, go for it. And then I was able to really help out and move up the virtual education. One thing that I really am proud of is increasing the offers of that, because I really think that the more we can offer to our members, the better it is. And I really don't have any problem inviting any guests. Sometimes I really have a problem of saying no to them because I got so many already. Then sometimes they're not ready for prime time.
Hmm.
So I have to make a really help them later on, improve them, and then maybe you can do it. Try it next year because it's a different set of skills to be able to present your study or be part of this international stage.
Hmm.
So, Bobby, what can we expect from the online education committee over the next year or so? Do you guys have any hot topics that are coming out that people might want to know about? Or is there a way for people to contribute ideas to you or a mechanism for that?
Oh, yes. So let me talk about what will be features. Oh, so I have my schedule here. So September, we will have a classroom to clinic, a group from Ohio State University.
The Ohio State University.
Yes. This is hard, but you have to go to my memory. Oh, we also have a journal club that am very excited because I this been on a study for quite some time, and I read it and I said this is very useful. Imagine a use of straight leg racing in helping you predict standing ability of the patient. How many times we need to stand up the patients and the patient's not ready? We give all our strength, block the knee from preventing from falling, and make sure that we will not hurt the patients. But with this study, we now have some objective mechanism to identify you're ready to stand up based on this
Hmm.
study. And there's more up in the pipeline about ECMO and VAD, a group from Johns Hopkins University. We're still talking up and coming up with another exciting is the emergency department, acute care PT practice. I work sometimes, it's funny with my per diem job. Many years ago, I don't know how to deal or work with an emergency department. I was never been taught about this, never been trained, but I was just one day walking into my patient schedule on a weekend and said, oh, I have an emergency assignment. And I said, what should I do? I never know how to deal with this. Even though I'm a clinician, CCS and all the things, I'm still like grappling what to do. So I think if I experience some challenging, there must be some people out there who needs a little bit more help in safely navigating how to practice ED, emergency department. And as you know, the acute care practice is growing, and there's the need more for acute care physical therapists in emergency. Those patients, particularly who are in, I call it limbo, who may not be admitted, who may be admitted, who can be discharged. How do we appropriately make that recommendations? And then we have assembled a group of experienced physical therapists working in the emergency department. So that's why I am excited. Now, going to your next question, how people can do this? Sign up, please. We need more volunteer in my committee and any other committee of APTA. However you want to do, the more you volunteer, the more you participate, it's good. It's good for the soul. It's good for the practice. At the end of the day, you walk away feeling great, knowing you made some big, significant difference to the professions that we all love. So just send me an email, Bellarmino, Blermino at utescahealth.edu, or go to website and then just said, hey, I'm thinking of being part of this. We have a committee of APTA learning, we have committee for journal club, and we have committee for webinar. Also, other different committees of our academy, I'm sure they're also looking for members. So there's many opportunities. One desires If you just join in and just reach out, we're here. And for any topics that you feel like you wanted to talk about, be part of this conversation, please send me that information. I'll be more than happy to take your
And
suggestion.
Bobby, I have a question because I know some people may want to know this. Are there continuing education credits that go along with any of these journal clubs or webinars or anything like that?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, no. We don't do that.
So I think coming for your own learning and professional growth and being able to network with other people in the community is just as important, right?
And yes, yes. And just being out there. We all love our professions. We need to help prosperous, grow, and really be connected. PTs really like to be with other people, right? Other professions, they work in their little cubicle and they don't have that connection to other people. For us, we like to reach out. We like to talk. We like to touch people and be part of that
Yeah,
symbiosis of energy.
We really
yeah,
appreciate all you're doing for online education as well as putting some research out there.
Thank you. Thank
absolutely. And Bobby, I will say too that it can be you can help in a number of different ways. Whether you would want to, if you're conducting your research and you want to share your research so it can be disseminated out there. If you want to help out with the online journal club, things that I helped out with, just kind of managing the questions, the Q&A section, right, and just some of the IT stuff that goes around in terms of the background to be able to set things up, stuff like that. If it's in terms of generating ideas, right, just being part of that committee. Say, okay, what are the things that you say? You might be a clinician with the boots on the ground. You're in the ED. You're in the trenches in the acute care floors. What are things that you're noticing? Right, like that's kind of how early mobilization or use of outcome measures. It's those types of conversations that we need to hear about so that we know that we can go ahead and develop these continuing education opportunities. I will say though, regarding continuing education, as a moderator for that, is that I think the APT QK doesn't give the CEs, but you can take the certificate. There's a certificate of participation, and you can submit that. Because what's tough is that this is all throughout the United States, right? And so there's different state jurisdictions of what you
you.
use online. So you might be able to take that certificate and then apply that in your state regarding the State Practice Acts and see if that can count towards your continuing education. So you still might be able to make it count.
That's great
Yes,
to
you're
know,
right.
Leo. I
Yeah.
appreciate you throwing that in. And Leo, I feel like you're the quintessential moderator. And I don't know if anyone else could fill those shoes. I don't know, but maybe.
We need volunteers because I got my hands in other pods. So
So,
and it's
so
not
you
that
want
you.
somebody to take your place?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, if you can click a button and you can work an app, like you will be okay, not a problem. And then no one has to see your face. You can be behind the scenes. So it's good. And what's great though is that the people that you meet is like I get free CEs just from like sitting in and listening to like these very very smart people just by association. I'm learning. So that's it provides really great opportunities.
Yes, yes. Being with other people is just nice to be part of.
Mhm, for sure.
Leo, I think it's time.
Yes, Bobby, are you familiar with our podcast where we do our rapid responses?
I have some ideas and I'm kind of nervous when it's going to be coming out.
Just go with your gut. The first thing that comes to your mind, boom, you spit it out.
I have filtered though because it might not be a PG-13 words. I need to.
That's what we have
That's
our
fine. We can
pros on
always
the
edit.
back end who can edit if
Yeah,
needed.
I think we can edit stuff out. Don't worry about it.
I'm
We can
just
we, can-
kidding.
we can release the B side. We can have that's our secret episode, right? We can say all of our edits that we cut out through the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right, so
I'm
we're
going
gonna
to set
ask
the
you
timer.
questions.
I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute and Leo's going to ask the first question. All right. Ready and go.
Bobby, what's your favorite scrub color to wear at work when you're in the
Blue,
hospital? Blue.
What's your favorite book?
a lot. PT book or a non-PT book?
Let's do a non-PT book.
Right now, I'm trying to read about the word unwinding. Our minds are very complex and busy. I have this mind that I need sometimes.
To come with that.
So
Bobby,
try
name
focus on that.
Bobby, name an influential PT in your career, somebody that's influenced you in your PT career.
What may become a physical therapist was the physical therapist of my grandmother back in the Philippines.
Aw.
Yes,
Very,
I didn't know about PT back then. Remember, this is many years ago in the Philippines. Physical therapy profession is now well known. And then my mother had a stroke, and I was just finished high school. I don't know what to do with my life. My aunt said, "Go help me carry your grandmother to the PT." And I said, "PT? What is that?" "You're gonna like it." I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but seeing my grandmother bedridden because of the stroke. And after a few months, able to sit and walk, that was fascinating to me.
That
That
is
was the
yes.
such
moment. Yes, that was the moment I realized I'd like to be like that.
that is such a
Because after
special.
that, there's so many people I have been blessed in this career. That's why I love this professions. I want to give back because it afforded me so much in this life that we called.
That is a wonderful, heartwarming story. Couple more questions. What's your favorite dessert?
Ooh, maybe a cake,
Hey,
German
right?
chocolate, three layer fudge cake right now.
Bobby, what type of shoes do you wear on acute care?
I wear a sneaker. What do you call this? Oh, I just bought a Nike shoes. So that's why.
Nike.
Let's try that.
All right.
All right,
Nikes.
and our time's up. So this is our last question. You know you work in acute care when fill in the blank.
When you don't mind dealing with bodily fluids.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is very true.
Mhm.
Probably a reason some people decide not to work in acute care physical therapy.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I had a great time. Wow, this is fun.
All
Bobby,
right.
where else can people reach out? There was your email. Are there other places that people can reach you if they have more questions, or if they want to get in contact with you, if they want to volunteer for the education committee outside your email? Is there anything else that they can contact you with?
I have a LinkedIn profile. You can look for me, and that's that's only my online platform right now. I have a Facebook, but it's really close to family and friends only.
Yeah.
That's my own little world. So if they want to reach out to me, either my email or my LinkedIn profile, that's available.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Welcome. Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank Bobby for joining us on the podcast. Acute Conversations is the official podcast of APTA Acute Care. It is hosted by Leora Gillis and Ashley Poole, executive produced by Katie Brito and Edward Bathurst, music by Alexia Action from Pixabay. For more information about APTA Acute Care, including items discussed in the show, please check out our show notes for links and resources from the Academy. If you found value from our podcast, please be sure to subscribe, follow, and share with your friends and colleagues. Join us in 2 weeks for a conversation with Thomas Almenroder on a recent study in Jackpot, Consistency of Physical Therapist Discharge Recommendations in Acute Care, a pilot study. Thank you for listening, and may your shoes and scrubs stay clean today.